So yeah, tell me.
Equity at its best.
This is part 6 of our interview with Anne, and the question was, how do we move towards change?
We are living in intense times. People are dying, right? And I think we white people, and I'm talking from kind of my experiences with a lot of white friends I'm having these days, are spending a lot of time crying, and we're spending a lot of time devastated and upset. And yes, we have a right always to our feelings, but we really need to learn to take the processing of those feelings into spaces of self-care, to surround ourselves with our loved ones. This is also something I'm learning from the election that I never thought I was that bad at, but now I really need, is to intentionally, go make tea with my partner who I love very much, like to spend time with people I love, and to spend time with my plants, and to look at cute animals, and to walk in nature, to do things that feed the soul, and in those spaces, that's where we process, I think, grief and rage, and I'm talking from especially white people. I say that because I don't want to imply anyone else should be processing rage and grief in those ways. I think white people, though, are taking up a lot of public spaces to process their grief. And I see a problem with that, right? Because we have a lot of real problems, like the fact that people are dying, and black and brown people are dying at higher rates, and especially men. And getting back to the idea of feminism and education, we need feminism in education because masculinity, toxic masculinity, is killing us all. I mean, one of the reasons why I think you can understand the story in 13th and a lot of good documentaries, The New Jim Crow, Michelle Alexander. I mean, I can name a lot of people. I think somewhere I have a list of many of the brilliant minds. Angela Davis is one of Alice Walker, Bell Hooks. I mean, there's just so many brilliant minds talking these days about these things. But Michelle Alexander, especially about incarceration, but from a patriarchy, gender type interpretation, right? You can understand that white men really controlled the way they built the country. And they saw black men as the biggest threat. And so they created these systems so that now today, you look at the death rates, you look at what's happening, and we can't ignore history, right? But it's also related to masculinity. And if we can see that, and if we can see that it's related to white men's need to feel superior, right? And I think sometimes their need to feel superior over black men maybe grew as white women got more equality, right? They can't be as oppressive in their homes because we white women are like, hey, stop being an asshole, as much. Feminism really challenges the dominance of white men in a lot of spheres, not just in the home, in the workplace, in all these parts of society. And I almost think you can see the mass incarceration that is definitely an outgrowth of slavery, but I wonder sometimes if this really rapid growth and the police brutality, I think, was always there, and I wish we knew how much, because I've also heard arguments that it's always been there, we've just gotten better recently about recording it. I think that's certainly true, but I wonder too if there is this spike in it because white men are really freaking out and they're doing horribly destructive things. And so instead of teaching 5th grade easily and just having brilliant minds and learning about all of their projects that they go on to do, instead of just focusing on, for example, climate change in the classroom, a lot of the classroom time has to be devoted to developing spaces where students feel empowered. Her classroom she has 26 students this year, and I think a third of them are in temporary housing, which and this is why I just admire my sister so much, was telling me about a meeting she was just at, and the holiday time, a lot of white volunteers, especially white women, like to come in and give things to the kids, but in a very white savior way. And my sister was challenging the school and having conversations with the principal and other teachers to say, wait a minute, we don't want to perpetuate this idea that white people need to save people of color, because the students are predominantly people of color. So instead, we need to be more critical about this. And one of the things she does with her classroom is they fundraise. They raise funds, and I think this year, I'm not sure, one of the projects they're looking at is buying books to send to students who are incarcerated, which I say incarcerated like this because how can we be incarcerating anyone who's a kid? That still blows my mind. And I admire her so much because the system of schooling that it should be freeing us sometimes is constraining us. And the number of children, she has a group of young black boys in her classroom, and the story she tells about how other educators talk about those kids in the break, not meaning to, right? And I think that's important. White people, like, watching this, I don't want them to just react with, oh, I'm being racist, and then run away. It's like, oh, white people, hey, we're probably being racist. Let's sit in the conversation so we can learn and stop doing that, right? Like, the othering of young black men starts very young. And well-meaning people, a lot of times white women teachers, start with the othering, right? They're the ones who start saying, well, that kid, he has this, we were talking about medicalization a little bit, right? Like, he has attention deficit disorder. He can't sit still. He can't do this. He can't do this. And like, instead of doing that, like, let's sit with the kid and figure out what he's really good at and support that and cultivate that. And she does some brilliant work with them. But just like seeing how deeply our social identities affect how we interact with each other, and learning about that has been so eye-opening for me. And I really hope our educational institutions are reoriented now to encourage everyone to do that and to encourage us to make mistakes. Do you know Cutie Pop on campus?
Yes.
Talk about mistakes. This one. I went to their organizing meeting, and I like totally like kind of interrupted. Can I say the names of?
Yeah.
Nadia. I like kind of interrupted her in her meeting. And
I know her.
Yeah, and she totally was just like she handled it. And I was like, and afterwards, my friends, both men of color, were like, you could have just waited for that comment till the end, and like, you should have waited. And I was like, yeah, that was me trying to be a little bossy and whatever. And so I learned something, right, from that experience. And I think before the election, I would have tried to defend it and say, well, it was really important I say it at that moment. And instead, you know, I'm a white person in a space that's organized for queer and trans people of color. Like, I'm gonna listen to feedback. And when they say, well, Anne, next time, like, why don't you just, you know, raise your hand at the end and offer your comments? I'm definitely going to try that next time, you know? So, like, education can support that. These are skills that we can all learn. We can say them when we're better able to make those connections, to feel connections to other groups, when we understand that at the deeper level, we're all connected as humans through art and culture and expression. And education can be that transformation we need in our society. 38th Street School wasn't perfect, but it was a really cool experiment. Peace Works was we had like peacemaker badges you could get, but like we had mediation rooms you would go into and learn, and hopefully today, schools, I think there are a lot of smaller schools doing that, but that also needs to have, right, the missing piece there that now I can see, but I couldn't see then, was that they were almost all white teachers. And